She cropped me out of a selfie, laughed at my clothes, and said she only befriended me in high school because of a dare. When I asked her why she'd saved photos of my lowest moments, she grinned and said, because it always made people laugh. I just stared at her. That was 1 month ago. Today, she was shaking when she opened my job offer. Back in high school, I was the fat, ugly girl with failing grades, and Samantha was the only person who'd talk to me. So fast forward 8 years later, when I heard that her influencer career had crashed, I reached out to offer her a $95,000 social media manager position for my private chef business. The second she walked into the coffee shop and saw me sitting there in my thrift store clothes, her face lit up with that same cruel smile from high school. Oh my gosh, is that really you? Samantha slid into the booth across from me and immediately started laughing. Still working in food service, I bet. She threw her head back cackling like she'd just told the funniest joke in the world. It had been 8 years. There's no way she was still like this. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt and continued. Actually, Samantha, I wanted to talk to you about something. There's this position. Hold that thought. She waved me off and pulled out her phone to show me her bank app with a $30,000 deposit from my partnership. I made 6 figures from one Instagram post. Can you imagine? I looked closer and saw that the date in the corner was marked from 3 years ago, but she swiped away before I could point that out. Samantha's phone buzzed and she gasped dramatically. Sorry, all these brand emails and DMs, it never stops. She angled the screen away, but I caught a glimpse of her Instagram notifications. The last follow request was also from 3 years ago. As she put her phone down, her eyes traveled over my outfit with obvious disgust. Oh my gosh, you still dress exactly the same. Those baggy clothes really hide everything, huh? Though I guess there's not much to hide with that flat. The familiar burn of humiliation crept up my neck. She hadn't changed at all. Remember how I tried so hard to help you with makeup tips in high school? Clearly it didn't stick. She dug through her purse and pulled out an old lipstick. It's expired, but TBH, you need all the help you can get. She held up her phone for a selfie and I leaned in automatically, but she angled it to completely crop me out before posting it immediately. Then she physically scooted her chair back from the table. I gritted my teeth and tried one more time. Samantha, I really think you'd be interested in this opportunity I have. Wait, are you still a virgin? She blurted out, studying me with fake concern. I always wondered if anyone would actually, her smile faded as soon as she realized I wasn't laughing. Gosh, you're still so boring. No sense of humor, no fun, just sitting there like you did in high school. She rolled her eyes. You know what? Fuck it. Why am I even trying? The only reason I ever talked to you was because of a dare. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched. What? The word came out as barely a whisper. She started scrolling through her phone with a nasty smile. Every time you texted me, I'd screenshot it to the group. She turned the screen toward me, showing actual screenshots from 2014. My desperate messages asking to hang out, wondering why she wasn't responding, apologizing for whatever I'd done wrong. She kept scrolling, getting more animated with each swipe. But wait, it gets better. Remember when that thing with your dad happened and you came to school crying every day? Her voice got louder, not caring who heard. We had a whole betting pool on when you'd finally snap too. My hands started shaking under the table. That was the worst year of my life and she was laughing about it. That time you passed out in PE from not eating? We took photos. Still have them. She flipped to an old photo on her phone showing me crumpled on the gym floor. Look how pathetic you looked. Like a wounded animal. She started mimicking the way I used to rock back and forth when I was anxious, exaggerating it for effect. By this point, the entire coffee shop had gone silent. She stood up to leave, then sat back down. Actually, this is too entertaining to miss. Tell me more about your little job. What do you do now? Flip burgers? Make box mac and cheese for families who can't afford real food? She pulled out her phone again, smirking. Actually, give me your Instagram. I need to see how pathetic your life is for myself. I just handed her my phone, wanting the nightmare to be over with. Samantha's face froze as she scrolled through my posts. The account only had a few thousand followers, but every photo showed elaborate 5-course dinners in marble kitchens, private jets, yachts, estate dining rooms that looked like museums. My bio was executive private chef. The most recent post showed a $30,000 dinner service. Samantha's face went totally white. She kept scrolling through my phone with shaking hands, her mouth hanging open. What the actual fuck? The words came out strangled. No, there's no fucking way this is actually you. I watched her fingers scroll frantically through my Instagram feed, each swipe making her breathing more ragged. The coffee shop's background noise faded as customers pretended not to stare at our table. Her hand trembled as she clicked on a video showing me plating Wagyu beef in a kitchen bigger than most apartments. The client's voice could be heard praising the presentation. Samantha's knuckles went white, gripping my phone. She shoved the phone back at me so hard it nearly fell off the table. I caught it smoothly and slipped it into my pocket. Her chair scraped against the floor as she stood up abruptly, then sat back down, then stood again like she couldn't decide what to do with her body. I took a slow sip of my coffee, watching her process what she'd just seen. The same girl she'd photographed passed out on a gym floor now cooked for people who owned private jets. Her face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and something that looked like panic. She grabbed her purse and started digging through it frantically, pulling out her own phone again. Her fingers flew across the screen, probably trying to find more information about me online. I could see her searching my name on Google, LinkedIn, anywhere that might explain how this had happened. The barista called out someone's order and Samantha jumped at the sound. She looked around the coffee shop like she was seeing it for the first time, noticing how everyone was still watching us. Her cheeks flushed red. I pulled out the folder I'd brought with me and set it on the table between us. The job offer I'd prepared, complete with salary details and benefits package. She stared at it like it might bite her. Her phone buzzed with an actual notification this time. She glanced at it and her face went even paler. I caught a glimpse of an overdue payment reminder before she flipped the phone face down. She reached for the folder with shaking hands, then pulled back, reached searched again, finally grabbed it and opened it, her eyes scanning the first page. The salary figure was right at the top, $95,000 plus benefits, more than she'd probably seen in the last 2 years combined. Her expired lipstick rolled off the table and onto the floor. Neither of us moved to pick it up. She kept reading, her breathing getting shallower with each line. The job description outlined managing social media for a successful private chef business with high-profile clients. She looked up at me, then back at the papers, then at me again. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. The cruel smile from earlier was completely gone, replaced by something raw and desperate. I watched her realize that I held all the power now, that I could help her, or leave her drowning in whatever financial mess she was clearly in. The same dynamic from high school, completely reversed. She set the folder down carefully and smoothed out the pages with trembling fingers. Her voice came out hoarse when she finally spoke. She asked if this was real, if I was actually offering her this job. No mockery, no sarcasm, just naked desperation. I nodded and explained that I'd been following her career, such as it was, that I knew her influencer income had dried up, that despite everything, she did have genuine social media skills that could be valuable if properly directed. Her hands clenched and unclenched in her lap. She kept glancing between me and the job offer like she was trying to solve an impossible equation. The girl she'd tortured for sport was now in a position to save her. She asked why. Why would I help her after everything? Her voice cracked on the question. The coffee shop had gone back to its normal buzz of conversation, but our table felt like an island of tense silence. I told her it was a business decision, that personal feelings had nothing to do with it, that I needed someone with her specific skills and she needed a job. Simple as that. She laughed, but it came out strangled and wrong. She said she didn't deserve this, didn't deserve my help. The words seemed to physically hurt her to say. I'd never seen Samantha humble before. It didn't suit her. I reminded her that this was a real position with real responsibilities, that I ran a serious business with demanding clients who expected perfection, that if she took the job, she'd be working for me, following my directions, representing my brand. She nodded rapidly, too rapidly, said she understood, that she could do it, that she'd be professional. Her desperation was so thick I could almost taste it, the predator from high school reduced to begging for scraps from her former prey. I slid a business card across the table, told her to think about it and call me by the end of the week if she was interested, that we'd need to do a formal interview, check references, the whole process. This wasn't charity, it was business. She grabbed the card like a lifeline, her fingers traced over my name and title, executive private chef, owner, CEO, all the things she never imagined I could be. I stood up to leave and she scrambled to her feet too. I'm trying to understand why she kept that expired lipstick in her purse. Does holding on to old things help her feel important? The way she showed that 3-year-old bank deposit makes me wonder if she's been replaying her successful moments over and over in her mind to avoid facing what's happening now. For a moment, we just stood there, the power dynamic between us completely transformed. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, like all her cruelty had been armor and now she stood exposed. As I turned to go, she called out, asked if I remembered all those times in high school when she'd promised to invite me to parties but never did, when she'd said we were friends but treated me like a joke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I stopped but didn't turn around, told her I remembered everything, every screenshot, every bet, every photo of me at my lowest. Let that hang in the air between us. Then I walked out, leaving her standing there with my business card clutched in her hand. The bell above the door chimed as I left. Through the window, I could see her sink back into her chair, staring at the job offer like it was written in a foreign language. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from an unknown number, Samantha, all ready, saying she was interested, that she'd call tomorrow, that she was sorry. The messages came rapid fire, each more desperate than the last. I didn't respond. Let her sweat it out for a few days. Let her wonder if the offer was even real or just an elaborate revenge fantasy. The same uncertainty she'd put me through all those years ago. But this wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about something much more complicated. Something that would take more than one coffee shop meeting to resolve. I drove to my next client's house, a mansion in the hills with a kitchen that cost more than most people's homes. As I unpacked my knife roll and began prepping for that evening's dinner party, I thought about power, how it shifts, how it changes people, how it reveals who they really are. Samantha would call. I knew that with absolute certainty. She needed this job too badly to let pride get in the way. And when she did, the real test would begin. Not for her, for me. Because hiring her meant working with her every day, seeing her, trusting her with my business, giving her access to my life in a way I'd never allowed before. The scared high school girl inside me screamed that this was a mistake, but I wasn't that girl anymore. I'd built something from nothing, created a life that exceeded even my own dreams. And maybe, just maybe, I was strong enough now to face my past head on. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Samantha. This time just 2 words that made my chest tight. I'm sorry. I deleted it without responding and got back to work. There would be time for apologies later. Right now, I had dinner to prepare for clients who expected nothing less than perfection. The same perfection I'd demand from anyone who worked for me, including Samantha, if she could handle it. The next few days passed in a blur of client dinners and events. I didn't hear from Samantha again after those initial frantic texts, which surprised me. I'd expected her to call immediately, to grovel, to beg. The silence was somehow worse than desperation would have been. On Thursday morning, my phone rang while I was organizing ingredients for a yacht party. Samantha's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Her voice came through shaky and uncertain as she asked if we could meet to discuss the position properly. I suggested my office at the commercial kitchen space I rented. She agreed immediately. The kitchen facility occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse. I'd invested heavily in the space over the years, turning it into a professional operation with top-tier equipment. When Samantha arrived, she stood in the doorway taking in the gleaming stainless steel surfaces and industrial refrigerators. Her designer heels clicked against the polished concrete floor as she walked toward my office. She'd clearly made an effort with her appearance. Fresh makeup, styled hair, an outfit that probably cost more than she could afford. The contrast with her desperate texts made it all the more obvious how badly she needed this job. I gestured for her to sit across from my desk. The interview started professionally enough. I outlined the position's responsibilities, explaining how she'd manage content creation, client communications, and social media strategy. She nodded along, taking notes on her phone. Her hands still shook slightly, but she maintained eye contact and asked relevant questions about metrics and growth targets. Then she started the subtle digs. While discussing content strategy, she mentioned how she could help elevate my brand beyond its current amateur aesthetic. When I showed her examples of successful posts, she commented that they lacked sophistication. Each criticism came wrapped in helpful suggestions, but the underlying message was clear. She still saw me as beneath her. I pulled up analytics showing my steady growth and engagement rates. She glanced at them dismissively, suggesting that with her expertise, she could triple those numbers. The arrogance crept back into her voice as she outlined all the ways she'd transform my simple food photos into aspirational lifestyle content. My assistant Victoria knocked and entered with contracts for an upcoming event. Samantha's eyes followed her, taking in Victoria's professional attire and confident demeanor. After Victoria left, Samantha asked how many employees I had. When I mentioned my team of 5, her jaw tightened. The reality of my success kept hitting her in waves. She shifted tactics, bringing up shared memories from high school. Remember when we'd eat lunch together? Remember how she'd always saved me a seat? The revisionist history made my skin crawl. I remembered eating alone while she and her friends laughed at me from across the cafeteria. I remembered the saved seat that was always mysteriously taken when I approached. I kept the interview on track, discussing scheduling and expectations. She'd need to be available for evening events, weekend functions, and last-minute client requests. The salary included these demands. She agreed to everything, desperation overriding any negotiation instincts she might have had. As we wrapped up, she stood and extended her hand. Her grip was firm, but her palm was damp with sweat. She promised she'd be the best social media manager I'd ever had, that she'd prove herself worthy of this second chance. The words rang hollow given her earlier condescension. I told her I'd make my decision by Monday. She nodded, gathered her things, and headed for the door. At the threshold, she turned back. Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing raw fear underneath. Then she straightened her shoulders and walked out, heels clicking with forced confidence. That evening, while prepping for a dinner party in Malibu, I couldn't stop thinking about the interview. My sous chef John noticed my distraction and asked if everything was all right. I brushed off his concern, focusing on the intricate plating required for the 7-course meal. The clients, a tech executive and his wife, praised every dish. They mentioned their upcoming anniversary party, wondering if I had availability. As I discussed menus with them, my phone buzzed with another text from Samantha, a follow-up thanking me for the opportunity, promising she'd already started brainstorming content ideas. Over the weekend, her texts became more frequent. She sent mock-ups of Instagram posts, suggestions for hashtag strategies, and links to trending food content. Each message tried to demonstrate her value while subtly undermining my current approach. She couldn't help herself. I spent Saturday catering a wedding in Santa Barbara. The event required my full team, including Victoria, who managed front-of-house service. During a brief break, she mentioned seeing Samantha's interview on the calendar. Victoria had started as a server 3 years ago, working her way up through dedication and skill. She asked if I was really considering hiring someone with no food service experience. The question stuck with me as we plated 150 perfectly synchronized dinners. My team moved like a well-oiled machine, each member understanding their role and executing flawlessly. Samantha would disrupt that dynamic, but maybe disruption wasn't entirely bad. Sunday brought a smaller event, a birthday dinner for a longtime client's daughter. These intimate gatherings were my favorite, allowing for more creative freedom and personal touches. As I prepared handmade pasta, my mind wandered to high school, to all the times I'd cooked alone at home, finding solace in the kitchen while Samantha and her friends partied. My phone rang while the pasta dried. Samantha again. This time she wanted to clarify her vision for the social media strategy. I let her talk, hearing the desperation creeping back into her voice as she oversold her ideas. She mentioned her follower count 3 times, though I knew most were bought or inactive. Monday morning arrived with a sense of inevitability. I'd made my decision over the weekend, though part of me still questioned the wisdom of it. I called Samantha at 9 sharp. She answered on the first ring, breathing audibly into the phone. I offered her the position with conditions: a 3-month probationary period, weekly performance reviews, strict guidelines about professional conduct and client interactions. She accepted everything without hesitation, her relief palpable through the phone. We scheduled her first day for Wednesday. Tuesday passed in a blur of prep work and client meetings. I informed my team about the new hire, watching their reactions carefully. Victoria remained skeptical but professional. John shrugged, trusting my judgment. The others seemed curious about the addition of a dedicated social media manager. Samantha arrived early Wednesday morning, dressed in what she probably considered appropriate work attire. The designer dress and heels looked absurdly out of place in the industrial kitchen. I handed her a company polo shirt and suggested she might want to keep spare clothes here for event days. Something feels off about how quickly Samantha's asking for this job after those first desperate texts. What's really driving this sudden career change from influencer to food service? Her comments about elevating the brand and fixing the amateur aesthetic make me wonder if she truly understands she's the one who needs help here. Her first task was photographing prep work for the week's content calendar. She moved through the kitchen awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable in the utilitarian space. When John offered to explain our organization system, she brushed him off with barely concealed disdain. The old told Samantha peeking through already. I watched her work, noting how she avoided interacting with the team beyond necessity. She set up elaborate photo shoots for simple dishes, spending an hour on what should have taken 10 minutes. When I suggested efficiency improvements, she explained that I didn't understand modern content creation. The first client meeting tested her professionalism. Mrs. Chen, a regular who'd been with me since the beginning, came to discuss her annual charity gala. Samantha's eyes widened at the budget discussion, realizing the scale of events I handled. She took notes silently, occasionally glancing at me with something like respect. After Mrs. Chen left, Samantha immediately started critiquing the meeting. I should have pushed for a higher budget. I should have suggested trending menu items instead of Mrs. Chen's favorites. I should have presented myself more professionally. Each criticism chipped away at my patience. That afternoon, while the team prepped for an evening event, Samantha cornered me in the office. She'd been reviewing my past posts and identified numerous missed opportunities. Her tone dripped condescension as she explained basic social media principles I'd been successfully applying for years. I assigned her to shadow the evening event, learning how service actually worked. She balked at the suggestion, insisting her time was better spent creating content strategies. I made it clear that understanding our operations was non-negotiable. She agreed with obvious reluctance. The event, a corporate dinner for 40, ran smoothly until Samantha decided to network with guests. I caught her handing out her personal Instagram handle, positioning herself as the creative force behind my brand. When I confronted her privately, she claimed she was building valuable connections for the business. Thursday brought new challenges. Samantha posted content without approval, using photos that didn't meet our quality standards. The captions focused more on her involvement than the food itself. When I demanded she take them down, she argued that I was stifling her creativity. She complied eventually, but the damage was done. Several clients had seen the posts, commenting on the sudden change in voice. I spent the morning doing damage control, assuring them that our service standards remained unchanged. Samantha watched from her desk, seemingly oblivious to the problems she'd caused. Her treatment of the team worsened by the day. She ordered Victoria to fetch her coffee, despite Victoria being senior staff. She criticized John's knife skills while barely knowing how to hold a blade herself. The kitchen's harmonious atmosphere grew tense with her presence. Friday afternoon, I overheard her on a phone call. She was describing her new position to someone, claiming she'd been brought in to save a failing business. She painted me as a charity case who'd gotten lucky, someone who desperately needed her expertise to succeed. My hands clenched around my knife handle. When she hung up, I called her into the office. The conversation stayed professional, but I made it clear that undermining the business or team would result in immediate termination. She apologized with fake sincerity, promising to be more mindful. Her eyes told a different story. The weekend brought a high-profile event, a tech launch party for 200 guests. This was the kind of function that could make or break reputations. I needed all hands working perfectly, including Samantha. I assigned her to photograph the event while helping with basic prep. She arrived late, claiming traffic despite living 15 minutes away. Her outfit was completely inappropriate for kitchen work, forcing her to borrow clothes from Victoria. The borrowed polo shirt clearly irritated her, especially when she realized it meant she looked like regular staff. As the team worked through prep lists, Samantha wandered around taking photos. She kept getting in everyone's way, oblivious to the kitchen's rhythm. When hot pans needed to move, she stood in traffic lanes. When plating required precision, she leaned over shoulders for close-ups. John finally snapped when she nearly caused him to drop a tray of canapes. He told her to either help or get out of the way. She complained to me about his unprofessionalism, seemingly unaware of her own disruptive behavior. I sided with John, assigning her to garnish duty. Watching her struggle with basic tasks provided a strange satisfaction. She couldn't maintain consistent cuts on herbs. Her plating lacked any aesthetic sense. When Victoria tried to show her proper technique, Samantha insisted she was doing it correctly, pride preventing her from learning. The event itself went flawlessly, despite Samantha's attempts to insert herself into guest interactions. She kept approaching tables with her phone, disrupting conversations for impromptu photo shoots. Several guests complained about the intrusive photography. I had to physically remove her from the dining area. In the kitchen, she sulked while the team celebrated another successful event. She made snide comments about the menu being safe and uninspired, about how her influencer events had been more creative, about how we were wasting opportunities for viral content. The team ignored her, but I saw the irritation in their eyes. Week 2 started with Samantha submitting an elaborate proposal for a complete rebrand. New logo, new aesthetic, new everything. She'd clearly spent the weekend working on it, hoping to impress me with her initiative. Instead, it revealed how little she understood about my business and clients. I rejected the proposal, explaining that our brand was built on consistency and reliability. Clients trusted us because we delivered excellence without gimmicks. She argued that I was stuck in the past, afraid of innovation. The conversation grew heated before I shut it down. She retaliated by becoming increasingly difficult to manage. She showed up late, left early, and spent most of her time on personal calls. When I addressed the behavior, she'd improve for a day before sliding back. The 3-month probation period felt like a lifetime. Her content creation remained problematic. She insisted on featuring herself prominently in posts, turning my business account into her personal platform. When I enforced approval processes, she complained about creative restrictions. Every interaction became a battle of wills. The breaking point came during a charity event for one of my oldest clients. Samantha had been explicitly told to remain behind the scenes, focusing on capturing candid moments. Instead, she approached the host's table during service, pitching her own catering services for future events. I watched in horror as she handed out business cards for a company that didn't exist yet. She was using my contacts to launch her own competing business. The betrayal felt familiar, like high school all over again. But this time, I had power to respond. I pulled her aside immediately, keeping my voice low but firm. She was done for the evening. We'd discuss this on Monday. She tried to explain, claiming she was exploring partnership opportunities, but I walked away. The team finished the event without her, the kitchen running smoother in her absence. That weekend, I discovered she'd been screenshotting my client lists and private communications. Victoria found her logged into my computer after hours, downloading files. Security footage confirmed she'd been staying late to access confidential information. Just like high school, she was documenting everything for her own purposes. I spent Sunday consulting with my lawyer, preparing termination paperwork. The probationary period allowed dismissal without cause, but I wanted everything documented properly. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about protecting what I'd built from someone who wanted to tear it down. Monday morning, I arrived early to find Samantha already there. She'd brought coffee and pastries, attempting to smooth over Friday's incident. Her smile was bright and fake as she apologized for the misunderstanding. She promised it wouldn't happen again, that she was still learning professional boundaries. I let her talk, noting how she twisted every action into something noble. She wasn't stealing clients. She was expanding opportunities. She wasn't undermining my authority. She was showing initiative. The manipulation was so transparent, yet she delivered it with complete conviction. When she finished, I placed the termination letter on the desk. Her face went through several expressions before settling on shock. She read it slowly, hands beginning to shake like they had in the coffee shop. When she looked up, tears were forming in her eyes. The tears were strategic, I realized. Just like in high school when she'd cry to teachers about mean girls bullying her, painting herself as the victim. But I'd learned to see through the performance. I stayed silent, waiting for her next move. She tried anger next, threatening to expose how I'd hired her just to humiliate her, how this was all an elaborate revenge plot, how she'd tell everyone in the industry about my unprofessionalism. The threats might have worked on the old me, but I'd kept meticulous records of her behavior. When I remained unmoved, she cycled back to desperation. She needed this job. She'd change. She'd follow every rule, respect every boundary. The promises poured out in a frantic stream, but I'd heard these promises before, in texts and calls and conversations. They meant nothing. I gave her an hour to collect her belongings under Victoria's supervision. She used the time to text frantically, probably trying to salvage the contacts she'd stolen. What made her think she could start her own business using someone else's clients right in front of them? The way she kept pushing boundaries even after warnings shows such a strange pattern. Did she really not see how each action was making things worse? Victoria later told me she'd tried to download more files, but IT had already revoked her access. As she left, carrying a box of her few personal items, she turned for one last shot. She said I'd never be anything more than the fat, ugly girl from high school. That success couldn't change who I really was. That everyone would eventually see through my act, just like she had. The words stung, but not like they would have before, because I realized she was talking about herself. She was the one who couldn't change, couldn't grow, couldn't see beyond high school dynamics. I was running a successful business while she was still playing teenage games. The team visibly relaxed after her departure. John actually smiled while prepping vegetables. Victoria efficiently reorganized the systems Samantha had disrupted. The kitchen returned to its natural rhythm, like a body healing after removing a splinter. That evening, while catering an intimate anniversary dinner, I thought about second chances, how I'd offered one to someone who'd never wanted it. Samantha had seen my success as something to exploit, not celebrate, my kindness as weakness, not strength. But I'd learned something valuable from the experience. The scared high school girl was still inside me, but she no longer controlled my decisions. I'd faced my past, looked my bully in the eye, and chosen my present instead. That was its own form of triumph. My phone buzzed with messages from Samantha throughout the week. Apologies, threats, pleas, and accusations in rotating cycles. I documented everything for legal purposes but didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Our story had played out exactly as it was always going to. By Friday, the messages had stopped. Victoria mentioned seeing Samantha's Instagram stories, where she claimed to have quit my toxic workplace. She was spinning the narrative for her dwindling audience, painting herself as the victim of a jealous former classmate. Some things never changed. I focused on moving forward. The business continued thriving without a dedicated social media manager. My team suggested we promote from within instead, training someone who understood our values. Victoria expressed interest, already familiar with our brand voice and client relationships. The following week brought new challenges and opportunities. A celebrity chef wanted to collaborate on a charity event. A food magazine requested an interview about women in the culinary industry. My calendar filled with the kind of success Samantha had tried to steal rather than earn. During a quiet moment between prep and service, I found myself thinking about patterns. How people like Samantha moved through life taking from others, never building anything themselves. How they mistook kindness for weakness, generosity for stupidity. How they never grew beyond their worst impulses. But I'd broken my own pattern. Instead of remaining the victim, I'd become someone who could offer opportunities. Instead of hiding from my past, I'd confronted it directly. The growth hadn't been easy or painless, but it had been necessary. The following Monday, I discovered Samantha had been busier than I'd thought. 3 of my regular clients called to cancel upcoming events, each with vague excuses about scheduling conflicts. When the 4th cancellation came in before noon, I knew this wasn't coincidence. Victoria brought me printouts from a new Instagram account she'd found. Samantha had created a competing private chef service, using photos she'd taken in my kitchen. The bio claimed 10 years of experience serving celebrity clients. Every post featured my recipes, my plating techniques, even my kitchen in the background. I spent the afternoon calling clients directly. Mrs. Chen answered on the 3rd ring, her voice uncomfortable as she explained that Samantha had contacted her with concerning information about food safety violations in my kitchen. The lies were specific enough to sound credible, vague enough to avoid legal action. My hands stayed steady as I addressed each false claim with documentation, health inspection reports, certification renewals, client testimonials spanning 5 years. Mrs. Chen listened quietly, occasionally asking for clarification. By the end of our conversation, she'd rescheduled her event and apologized for doubting me. The pattern repeated with other clients. Samantha had crafted different stories for each, playing on their specific concerns. She told the tech executive I'd been overcharging him. She warned the yacht club about supposed staff turnover issues. Each lie required hours to untangle. John found her active on industry forums, posting anonymous complaints about my business. The usernames were different, but the writing style unmistakable. She described fictional food poisoning incidents, made up stories about contract violations, even claimed I'd stolen recipes from other chefs. I documented everything meticulously. Screenshots, timestamps, IP addresses when available. My lawyer advised that defamation cases were expensive and difficult to prove, but the documentation would help if things escalated. For now, I focused on damage control. Tuesday brought a new development. Samantha had somehow accessed my old vendor accounts, placing orders that would arrive during my events. 50 pounds of fish delivered during a vegan wedding. Cases of liquor sent to a sober client's home. Each delivery timed to cause maximum disruption. I spent hours on the phone with suppliers, updating security protocols and flagging suspicious orders. Some vendors I'd worked with for years, building relationships that Samantha was trying to destroy in days. Most understood once I explained the situation, but the trust took time to rebuild. Victoria discovered Samantha had been contacting my staff directly, offering them positions at her non-existent company. She promised higher wages, better hours, creative freedom. The offers were obviously false, but she hoped to destabilize my team during busy season. My staff rallied around me instead. John changed his social media settings to private after Samantha created fake accounts to harass him. Victoria documented every contact attempt. The team's loyalty meant everything, but I could see the stress wearing on them. Wednesday's mail brought official-looking letters from a supposed health department investigation. The letterhead was convincing, the language appropriately bureaucratic. Only the callback number revealed the scam, routing to a disconnected line. Samantha was getting desperate. I filed reports with actual authorities, though they warned that online harassment rarely resulted in meaningful consequences. The police took my statement about the fraudulent letters more seriously, but without proof of who sent them, their hands were tied. That afternoon, I caught Samantha parked outside my facility. She sat in her car taking photos of staff coming and going, documenting delivery trucks, noting client arrivals. When I approached, she drove off quickly, but not before I photographed her license plate. The security company I hired suggested additional cameras and keycard access restrictions. The expense hurt, but the peace of mind was worth it. My business had grown beyond what one bitter person could destroy, but she could certainly make things difficult. Thursday revealed her newest tactic. She'd been leaving reviews on every platform possible, creating dozens of fake accounts to flood my profiles with 1-star ratings. Each review told a different fictional horror story. Rats in the kitchen, expired ingredients, staff members spitting in food. I spent the entire day disputing reviews, providing evidence of their fraudulent nature. Some platforms responded quickly, others required multiple appeals. The damage to my online reputation was immediate and visible. Potential clients would see these reviews first. My actual clients started reaching out, offering to write positive reviews to counteract the fake ones. Mrs. Chen wrote a particularly moving testimonial about my years of service. The tech executive posted photos from successful events. Their support reminded me why I'd built this business. Friday morning, Samantha made her biggest mistake. She contacted a food blogger, offering to sell insider information about my celebrity clients. What she didn't know was that the blogger was married to one of those clients. The screenshots landed in my inbox within an hour. This crossed a legal line. My lawyer drafted a cease and desist letter with specific examples of defamation, harassment, and attempted theft of trade secrets. We sent it certified mail and email, establishing a paper trail for potential future action. The weekend brought a major event I couldn't afford to lose. A Fortune 500 company's board dinner, referred by the tech executive. Samantha knew about it, having seen the contracts during her time here. I braced for whatever disruption she'd planned. She exceeded my worst expectations. Health inspectors arrived during prep, responding to an anonymous complaint. They found nothing wrong, of course, but the inspection took 2 hours we couldn't spare. My team worked around them professionally, but the stress was palpable. Next came the protesters. 5 people with signs claiming I'd stolen wages, hired undocumented workers, served contaminated food. They positioned themselves where arriving guests would see them. Security eventually moved them off private property, but not before several board members witnessed the scene. I maintained absolute professionalism throughout service. Each course went out perfectly, every dietary restriction accommodated, timing precise despite the earlier delays. The client later told me they'd been impressed by how we'd handled the disruptions. But the evening wasn't over. During dessert service, someone pulled the fire alarm. Guests evacuated while firefighters searched for non-existent smoke. Her old vendor account still worked after she got fired? That's odd. Most places cut off access right away when someone leaves. Makes me wonder if she kept passwords written down somewhere or if the security was just that bad to begin. Security footage showed a woman in a hood near the alarm pole station. The build matched Samantha, but the image wasn't clear enough for proof. My team returned to find the kitchen ransacked. Nothing stolen, but equipment moved, ingredients mixed up, prep work disturbed. We had 20 minutes to restore order and plate desserts. Everyone worked without complaint, fixing what Samantha had tried to destroy. The event ended successfully despite everything. The board members complimented the food, the service, the handling of unexpected challenges. Several requested my card for their own events. Samantha's sabotage had backfired, showcasing my team's professionalism under pressure. Saturday morning, I found her waiting by my car. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled, eyes wild with sleeplessness. She started talking rapidly about how I'd ruined her life, how this was all my fault, how I owed her. I documented the encounter with my phone while walking past her. She followed, her accusations growing more frantic. When I reached my car door, she grabbed my arm. I pulled away calmly, got in my vehicle, and locked the doors. She pounded on the window until I drove away. The restraining order paperwork took 3 hours to complete. The judge granted a temporary order based on the documented harassment, scheduled a hearing for the following week. Being forced to take legal action felt like admitting defeat, but I needed protection for my business and staff. That evening, while prepping for a client's birthday dinner, I realized something had shifted. Samantha's harassment had actually strengthened my business relationships. Clients saw how I handled adversity. Staff appreciated how I protected them. Vendors recognized my integrity. Sunday brought blessed quiet. No fake reviews, no surprise deliveries, no protesters. Samantha was probably digesting the restraining order, planning her next move. I used the time to implement additional security measures and brief my team on new protocols. The birthday dinner that night reminded me why I loved this work. 3 generations gathered around a table, sharing dishes that sparked memories and created new ones. The grandmother cried when she tasted a recreation of her late husband's favorite meal. These moments mattered more than any drama Samantha could create. Monday's restraining order hearing went smoothly. Samantha didn't appear, which meant the order was granted by default. The judge reviewed my documentation, asked a few clarifying questions, and issued a 1-year protection order. Small victory, but necessary. I returned to find my inbox full of supportive messages. Word had spread through the client network about Samantha's harassment campaign. People who'd never hired me reached out to express solidarity. Some booked events just to show support. The community I'd built was protecting itself. Victoria had spent the weekend creating a crisis management plan, new social media monitoring tools, review tracking systems, vendor verification protocols. She'd transformed Samantha's attacks into an opportunity to strengthen our operations. I promoted her to operations manager on the spot. Tuesday brought one last surprise. A package arrived with no return address. Inside, I found printed screenshots of every fake review, every forged document, every lie Samantha had spread. At the bottom, a note in her handwriting: "You win." I turned everything over to my lawyer and the police. The admission of guilt might prove useful if she violated the restraining order, but I knew this wasn't really about winning or losing. It was about moving forward. That afternoon, I catered a small luncheon for a new client. They'd found me through Mrs. Chen's recommendation, hadn't seen any fake reviews, didn't know about the drama. To them, I was simply a chef who could create memorable meals. The fresh start felt good. My phone stayed quiet all week. No unknown numbers, no fake accounts, no harassment. Samantha had apparently given up, moved on to whatever came next for her. I found myself hoping she'd get help, find peace, build something real instead of trying to destroy others' success. Friday marked 1 month since I'd fired her. The business was stronger than ever. Victoria had streamlined operations. John had developed new menu items. The team worked with renewed energy, free from toxic disruption. We'd survived and thrived. I stood in my kitchen that evening, prepping for a wedding the next day. The familiar rhythm of knife work calmed my mind. This space represented everything I'd built through hard work and dedication. No one could take that away, no matter how hard they tried. The wedding went perfectly. 200 guests, 6 courses, dietary restrictions ranging from vegan to keto. My team executed flawlessly, Victoria managing front of house while I focused on the kitchen. The bride hugged me during cleanup, saying it exceeded her dreams. As we loaded the van afterward, John mentioned he hadn't thought about Samantha all day. Neither had I until he brought it up. She'd consumed so much mental energy for weeks, but now felt like a distant memory, the past finally staying in the past. Sunday's schedule showed 3 consultations, 2 tastings, and prep for the upcoming week. Business as usual, wonderfully normal. I'd built something sustainable, something that could weather storms like Samantha. The foundation was solid. I thought about the coffee shop meeting that started everything, how I'd wanted to help someone who'd hurt me, hoping people could change. The expensive lesson learned: some people don't want to change. They want to drag others down to their level. But I'd also learned about my own strength. The scared high school girl was still there, but she stood behind a successful woman who'd faced her bully and won, not through revenge or cruelty, but by protecting what she'd built and refusing to be destroyed. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. She'd implemented the new review monitoring system, catching and reporting fake ones before they gained traction. The tools we'd developed to fight Samantha would protect us from future attacks, growth through adversity. The next morning, I arrived early to find my team already working. They'd come in unpaid to help prep for a busy week, wanting to give back after I'd protected them from Samantha's harassment. Their loyalty meant more than any Michelin star ever could. We worked in comfortable silence, each person focused on their tasks. This was what I'd built. Not just a business, but a family of professionals who supported each other. Samantha had tried to poison this well, but only made it stronger. As the sun rose over the city, filtering through the kitchen windows, I felt genuine peace. The chapter with Samantha was closed. She'd remain part of my story, a reminder of where I'd come from and how far I'd grown, but she no longer had power over my present or future. I pulled out my knife roll, running my fingers over tools that had served me through countless meals. Each blade represented hours of practice, dedication to craft, commitment to excellence. These were things no one could steal or destroy. The week ahead promised new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to create memorable experiences for clients. I was ready for all of it. The past had been faced, the present protected, the future secured through hard work and integrity. My name is still whispered in certain circles, but now with respect rather than mockery. I'd transformed from the fat, ugly girl with failing grades into a successful business owner who'd faced down her worst bully and emerged stronger. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every difficult step. Thanks for sticking with me while we unpacked all these questions. Always love diving into this stuff with you. you. Until next time, stay curious out there. If you made it to the end, drop a comment. I love reading all your comments.